Okay, I think we're going to get started. I see a lot of friendly faces that we've seen in many, many different bond meetings throughout the last 20 years, but I also see a lot of friendly faces that we've seen over the last 2 months. So thank you so much for being here again tonight. A few people I'd like to introduce you to and recognize this evening. First and foremost is our Board of Trustees in the Northeast School District. We have our Board President, Mrs. Letty Bresnahan. Board member Brigitte Perkins and her husband Mike. Board member Mr. Jim Wheat. Executive Director for Communications on the executive staff, Mrs. Aubrey, Chancellor. Our Executive Director for Business Services and our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Dan Villarreal. Associate Superintendent for Operations, Mr. Ron Clary. Associate Superintendent for Campus Administration, Dr. Donna Newman. Our Associate Superintendent for Instruction and Technology Services, Mrs. Jenna Hawkins. So once again, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules. May the 19th, the end of school is right around the corner, and we're all counting the days. So we're all pretty excited about graduation being right around the corner. In March and April, we shared with you information about our past bond programs, enrollment projections, needs assessment results, and community feedback. We have also been sharing the same information with 36 community members who serve on our Facility Steering Committee. This month, the Facility Steering Committee has prioritized the projects and created a preliminary bond program worksheet that we will review with you in just a few minutes. The Facility Steering Committee has 2 more meetings, so this project list will change. This project list will be adjusted. We have 2 more steering committee meetings. I will be recommending to the committee an overall budget of $500 million or less, which we can issue without a tax increase for the next 5 years. A tax rate increase, we will not have a tax rate increase in the next 5 years if the bond is less than $500 million. Now, Brian Moy, our Executive Director for Finance, is going to follow me in just a few minutes. He's going to give you a very comprehensive presentation on our bond debt so far. One of the items that our Facility Steering Committee is still wrestling with, and something that we need to go back to them on, is the idea of whether or not we need a new elementary school. School district employees, our staff, has gone back and we've looked at that again because many of you have shared with us that you weren't sure that a new elementary school was needed. So one of the main things we will share with the Facility Steering Committee next week, or one of the things that we will discuss with them, is the idea of going forward with that elementary school or not. We wanted, I'll be honest with you, for those parents and community members that are out there, we wanted to be proactive and build the school now before surrounding schools are full and before construction costs increase. We can wait. However, we could wait. Let the existing schools fill up and bus students to other campuses. And that's something we will be talking to the Facility Steering Committee next week about. One of the things we will talk to them about. The final recommendation from the Facility Steering Committee will be presented at the June 15th Board of Trustees meeting. To develop that final recommendation, we still need to hear your input. You will have an opportunity tonight to submit your comments and questions through text messaging, and we also have comment cards that you can leave on your way out. You will also have an opportunity to vote tonight on the planning budget. Now, we are asking one thing a little bit different than we had the last 4 community meetings. We really would like those people that are actual Northeast taxpayers to be the one to vote tonight. I think it's very important that I have a good feeling as to how the NEISD taxpayers feel about the planning budget. So, we have a full agenda, so let's get started with a very thorough debt management update from Brian Moy, our Executive Director of Finance. Brian? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gottardy. At our last meetings, I did a little bit of a teaser. We were pretty sure at that time that with the way that the economy was going, the way that our taxable values were projected to go out, that we weren't going to need a tax rate increase for up to a $500 million bond issue. And today we're going to go through a little more detail on that and kind of the reasons why we've gotten to this point. But first, let's talk just the very, very basics of property taxes. Because everyone says, oh, well, the school district tax is the largest tax on my bill. Well, that's probably true. But to actually let you know, it's actually 2 separate taxes. The Board of Trustees actually in September actually levies 2 different taxes. Now, they'll be combined on your tax bill, but even then on your notice, there should be a place at the bottom that actually spells out what the 2 rates are. The first one we call the maintenance and operations tax. This funds the general fund, the day-to-day operations of the district. This goes to pay for teacher salaries. This goes to pay for supplies. This goes to pay for keep cost of having the utilities on. It pays for transportation. Anything it takes to run the district on a day-to-day basis. The second tax is called, the old-time verbiage is the interest and sinking tax, or INS. You'll hear me refer to I&S, and it's not INS, it's not Immigration Naturalization Service, it's I&S. And this has one purpose and one purpose only. It is to pay down this year's debt payments on the bonds. That is the only thing it can be used for. We can't transfer it out to another fund. We can't pay salaries out of it. It has that one purpose only, is to administer the bonds. A few other things about district taxes. All the Board of Trustees does is set those 2 tax rates, and we relay that information to the Bexar County Tax Assessor Collector and the Bexar County Appraisal District. We get a lot of calls into the district saying, why did you raise the value of my house so much? We have no control over the appraisal of property. That's the Bexar County Appraisal District. We get phone calls that says, you denied my disability exemption. No, we have no part in it. That's Bexar County Appraisal District. We don't collect your taxes. There are a few school districts still that have their own tax collection office. We're not one of them. Bexar County Tax Assessor Collector collects all the taxes and remits to us our share. And we're not the ones that, if you don't pay your taxes, send your bills to collections. That's also the appraisal. The assessor collector, all we do is set the rates. So what does this look like then on your tax bill? If you notice, you'll have a market value and a taxable value. The market value is whatever the appraisal district thinks your home is worth. The taxable value is, if you qualify for any exemptions, you back off that amount, and here's what you're left with. Now, what the numbers you see here on the screen is a typical Northeast home. The average home value for the year coming up, market value is almost $193,000 with an average taxable value of $176,000. So how do you calculate taxes? You take the taxable value, divide by 100, multiply times the tax rate. Our M&O rate's $1.04, has been since 2008, and will be for the foreseeable future. So you pay, on average, $1,800 to help fund the day-to-day operations of the district. $700 goes towards paying off the bonds, and that's the taxes that we're talking about tonight. And here's how it works. Think about even when you go out to build a house. You go to a bank, you get a loan. The bank, if you see there at the top on the left, the bank sends the builder the $192,000 it takes to build the house. You then have a mortgage with the bank, and you pay the bank back $900 a month in mortgage payments for 30 years. It's a little more complicated on our side, but it's the same general principle. We go out not to a bank, but we go out to the open market investors with our bonds. Let's say we have a $200 million bond issue. Investors all over the world go out and they give us $200 million. We give them bonds, little certificates worth $5,000 each. Then we turn and we take that money and we pay off all the contractors and the architects. Then the Board of Trustees sets a tax rate. We collect the taxes from you every year, and we make our mortgage payment. We send a certain amount of those investors an amount of money each year to pay them off. So that's property tax basics. Let's talk about what have we done the last few years to help relieve the tax burden by lowering our debt costs. We do what's called refunding transactions. That is the term for the technical term for the types of bonds that we issue. It's basically the same thing as refinancing your mortgage, only for us it's called a refunding. Unlike your mortgage, hopefully a lot of you went out recently and have done a refinancing. We can't just go out and refund our entire debt portfolio now that rates are low. There are certain call features. There's really strict restrictions on when we can and cannot refund bonds. For the most part, you cannot refund a bond until 10 years down the road from the first time it was issued. But we actually, over the last 3 years, we've had a lot of those that were eligible for refunding, and we had 6 different refunding transactions over the last 3 years. And those transactions over the last 3 years has cut down on the amount of principal and interest we're going to pay on our debt by over $137 million over about 23 years. That's $137 million that the board is not going to have to levy in taxes. It's $137 million that will not need to come from your property tax bill. Now, to be honest, there's a standard in the industry, just to let you know, that if you want to compare, is that a good amount or is that a bad amount, is the present value of that $137 million. Basically, today, or the day we did the refunding, what is that amount worth? That amount was worth almost $103 million, or more importantly, it was nearly 14% of the amount of the bonds that were refunded. Is that good or bad? Well, for many years, the standard was don't do a refunding unless you can get 4%. In 2007, we did a refunding, and we got 5.5%, and we were jumping up and down, couldn't believe our luck. In the way that the economy has been moving the last few years, we've nearly tripled that standard. And it's just been an amazing time to be in this type of business. And why? Because interest rates are really low. What these little line charts here show is the top one in red is that's where interest rates were in 2007, and if you go across the bottom, that's time. So if you look there, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whether we issued bonds for 1 year or 30 years, everything was near 5%. Well, starting in 2012, when everything happened and we went through the recession, the Federal Reserve Bank lowered all of their rates, which in turn lowers pretty much everything that the banks or investors can expect on their rates. So we took advantage of that, and we took all this 5% yield debt and brought it all the way down. So that's what we were, and it's been staying there for the past 3 years. On top of doing refundings, we've started using a new type of bond. Well, new to us, it's been around forever. They're called variable rate debt obligations. It has two purposes. We reduce interest costs, it has lower interest costs than traditional bonds, and it allows us to pay down principal early. Now, you hear variable rate, and you might freak out. This is not the same type of adjustable rate mortgages that got the mortgage industry in trouble. This is a totally different type of instrument, and it's still guaranteed by the state. It's a very safe instrument for us to use. So instead of saying we're going to issue bonds over 30 years, we take a portion of our debt, and we say we're only going to issue it for 1 year, or 2 years, or 5 years. Why? Because the rates are lowest on that part of the scale. Then as we get done with the end of the first year, second year, we can then reissue the remaining bonds. We can switch them over to regular bonds if we want. We can reissue them to another short term if we want. We have a lot of options available to us. So when we issue bonds, said, oh, we're going to go out for a $100 million bond. We sell a $100 million bond. What we're actually doing is selling 20,000 different $5,000 bonds. And some of them mature in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, all the way out to 30. So when we say we have a 30-year bond, we actually have 20,000 different individual $5,000 sheets of paper. Some of them are due in 2 years, some are due in 3, 4, 17, 26, all the way out to 30 years. And long-term interest rates, as I said, are high. Right now, short-term rates are ridiculously low. If we keep a big chunk of our debt in that short range, you're obviously going to be taking advantage of paying less interest. So why didn't we use these in prior bond issues? Well, this chart that I showed a little bit earlier, if you look at 2007, the difference between sending out a piece of debt for 1 month and sending it out for 30 years, there really wasn't a difference. There was no savings in going short with your debt. But now look, we have a difference of about 2.6% at 30 years and 0.3% at 1 year. So why wouldn't we take a decent chunk of our debt and only put it out for 1 year? Another key advantage is the ability to pay off principal early. The VRDOs have a clause that says you can collect more in taxes than what the face of the bond says the interest payment's going to be for that year. So here's an example. We're issuing 1 year bonds of 1%. The interest payment is $750,000. But we levy as if the interest rate was 5%. We collect an extra $3 million. At the end of that year, guess what we do with that $3 million? Put it all against principal. Just like when you have the option when you're paying your mortgage payment every month, there's that little box that says, check here if you want to pay additional principal, and you write in an amount and make it and include it in your check. That's exactly what we're doing here. By doing this on the interest side, look at what we've done. If we had done everything that we have right now in variable debt, if we had done it all at fixed, it would have cost taxpayers just in these 2 years about $35.5 million in payments. We've actually done $12.1 million in payments simply by keeping our debt short. And then we turn around and on our first time that we ended a 1 year VRDO, we paid $6.5 million off of the principal. So that's $6.5 million that will never have interest charged against it ever again. So that's what we've been doing to try to reduce the burden of our debt payments. That brings us now to, okay, we've done all this. What can we do in terms of a new bond? Well, first of all, you don't issue it all at once in this market. There has been times when the interest rates were 5%, it means we could also earn 5%. So if we had a $500 million bond, we'd put most of it out the next day, and we'd invest up to our legal limit. And then we'd have all this interest earned money, and we turn it over and give it to Gary Sullivan and said, here, enhance some projects. Well, we're not earning 4% on our investment side anymore. We're earning 0.36. So if we're not going to earn money, why end up having to start paying interest on funds that are being unused? So we would split it up. January, it's 2016, some of 2017, some of 2018. We would mix in a few more variable rate instruments. Our policy allows for 25% of our total debt to be in the form of VRDOs. We're nowhere near that limit. So if we were to do $500 million worth of bonds, I would suspect that we would do something in the area of 175 to 250 in those short, keeping them short for 3 or 5 years initially, and keep taking advantage of the short interest rate market. Obviously, if something happens and rates skyrocket, well then fine, we don't do VRDOs, we push out the debt for 30 years because we're not saving anything by going short. The other thing that influences the capacity and our rates is the change in taxable value. A lot of you got some sticker shock when you received your notice from the appraisal district this year. Now, those of you who were over 10% know that your taxable value can only go up a maximum of 10% in any given year. So I've heard a lot of people say, my house went up 17%. Okay, well, at least you have to wait until you'll only get 10% this year. The bad news is you'll get the other 7% next year. So you can see our taxable values in the early to mid-aughts, we saw double-digit changes in taxable value all the times. Now, that doesn't mean everyone's house went up that percent, because we also had new properties being built. We were getting $1 billion in new buildings a year added to the boundaries of Northeast ISD. That increases the total taxable value. Then what happened in 2009? Boom, it crashed. Now, we did not have a real estate bubble burst in San Antonio. We actually just hit a ceiling, and everyone said, we're not raising, no values are going up. Nothing, we didn't see the big 25% reduction in total values, or 40% like you saw in California. We pretty much just hit a ceiling and stayed there until the economy turned around. Well, in 2013, we saw our first increase. It was about 4.7%. 2014, we're about 7%. We're projecting right now in this presentation about 7.5%, and I'm being conservative there. We have seen estimates from different sources saying that our total district-wide value could go up anywhere from 8, 10, 12%. I don't nearly anticipate 12%, because a lot of the increases in commercial property, and any of you here that are part of a large business with a lot of property know that the laws are set up to where you can fight your tax bill easier than a homeowner can. And so the possibility of those values coming down via the protest process are high. So in this, I'm only forecasting out for the following years 2%. I think I'm being very conservative. I hope we don't go back down to no property value increase. So based on those assumptions, if you had a $192,000 house, what would a bond issue do to your tax rate or to your bill? Now, this is based on this one scenario, $192,000 house. And we are talking about, as Dr. Gottardy said, the tax rate won't have to go up because of increases in values. However, if your individual house goes up 10%, yeah, you're going to see an increase in your taxes, but we don't control the appraisals. We're saying we will not change. From our perspective, we will not add to the angst by adding to the tax rate. In fact, we discussed with the board just last night the fact that we are actually looking that when we do our rates in September, depending on what the legislature does with possibly changing your homestead exemptions, we're actually thinking of lowering the INS tax rate for next year by 2 pennies, about 5% lower on the INS side of the tax rate, and still not need to go up on the rate again in order to have sufficient funds to pay the debt on a $500 million bond. But, there's always a but. We are in a legislative year, and the legislative session doesn't end until May 31st. Like I said, if the state does property tax cuts via a large change to the homestead exemption, that could change some of these assumptions. We will know in the next few weeks. Again, if the state does that, though, they've promised to hold us harmless. They will give us state aid to make up on the INS side, to make up for the amount of tax revenue that we're going to lose. And again, what if interest rates go up? We're hearing a slight increase in interest rates from the Federal Reserve Bank in September. When I say slight, I'm talking like going from the one-year rate being at 0 to the one-year rate being at like 0.25. You know, we're not talking about going back up to 5%. And again, we still are waiting the next round of estimates from the appraisal district in terms of commercial property value reductions due to protests. Good news is we should have most of this answered by the end of this month. So by the next time we gather in a session like this, we'll have a very, very good idea of where we are. And the rest of it will be answered by July, well before we have to go out and make a decision on whether or not to go for the bond. Okay, that is all of the information that I have. And at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to the meat of the night, and that is going to be done by Gary Sullivan, our Executive Director of Construction Management and Engineering.
Thank you, Brian. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and privilege this evening to have the opportunity over the next 45 minutes or so to present to you the results of a lot of hard work by the district staff and our facility steering committee in putting together a proposed bond program package for your consideration, as well as the process as we move forward beyond this evening, which includes 2 additional meetings with our facility steering committee, the 36 citizens that Dr. Gottardy mentioned during his remarks, that are essentially guiding us in developing the overall final group of projects that'll be presented to our school board next month on June 15th. And so that will be the next public meeting that will follow this meeting this evening, where you can learn more about what the final bond package looks like. Next slide. Oh, I have it right here. Thanks. Sorry. All right, let's first talk about how we got to where we are this evening. The district considered a lot of different factors in developing and prioritizing the projects that we've included in our bond program proposal for your review tonight. First of all, we had the results of the 2015 Facility Needs Survey that was participated by all campus principals, cabinet members, and program managers at the district level. And if you were here last month or had a chance to review it on the website, you saw the results of the Facility Needs Survey. We also looked at how much money have we expended in the past 20 years or the past 5 bond programs at a campus to help guide us in terms of, since we know the needs are great and far outweigh what we can do in any single bond program, the idea of allocating funds to high priority needs, but also trying to allocate those funds across as many campuses as we can where those needs exist, so as to make sure everybody moves forward together. We also looked at the age of the campus facilities. And we have some campuses that date back to the 1950s and some campuses that are as new as last year at Texas Middle School. We looked at how many portables are at a campus. We currently have 275 portable buildings across the district. Each portable has 2 classrooms, so that's well over 550 classrooms that are in portable buildings. Ideally, we would like permanent facilities for all classrooms across the district. So we always strive to see how we can make an improvement at a campus where there's a large number of portables and providing permanent facilities. We also looked at campuses where the participation rate by the students has exceeded our capacity to provide that program in the space available. We have a program for high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools in terms of how big a space should be. And we have some campuses that are now bursting at the seams in certain program areas where we need to look at expansions at those campuses in lieu of putting a cap on student participation, which is not something that the district is interested in doing at this time. And then there's other factors that can weigh on the decision about which projects should be included first, which are the top projects, and which projects can be pushed off to a future bond program. Now, we developed our program this evening in 5 general categories. Now, when we go out into the future, assuming that that this proposal moves on to a formal vote by the taxpayers, we're not going to present the proposal in terms of the categories. This was to aid us in our facility steering committee process so that the members of the steering committee, rather than having 36 people trying to look at every project individually, we broke the bond down into 5 logical categories and assigned members of the committee, mostly they volunteered for the areas that they had the most interest in, to help in a small group session come up with those projects that they felt had the greatest need and were deserving of being included in the bond program. And these are those 5 categories: safety and security, technology, district operations, extracurricular, which includes athletics, fine arts, and ROTC, as well as the district facilities at large, i.e. the category that catches everything that isn't in the first 4 categories. All right, well, first we're going to go through each category individually, and I'm going to talk about the projects that are included in that category. Every category had a leader that helped guide the process with the facility steering committee, and we've listed on the slide for your information who was the subject matter expert, the person who guided the process for the development of the projects jointly with the facility steering committee in each category. This first category was led by Mr. Villarreal, who is our Chief Financial Officer and Associate Superintendent for Business Services. Category number 1, safety and security. We put it as the first category because it's a very important category. As we've seen kind of the wave of how things have gone across our society, we need to be more vigilant in providing safety and security measures at our campuses. And I think as you'll see tonight in our program, there's a lot of safety and security included in the other 4 categories as well. But we specifically wanted to create a focus for top-level safety and security needs by creating a category just to look at those specific types of projects, many of which essentially span the entire district. There are 2 areas in this category. There's campus-based safety and security, which represents about 80% of the program budget of $20 million. And then there's the police department safety and security, which represents the other 20%. I'd like to orient you to the slide because these slides are going to be used in the same format for the other 4 categories, and I think it's important that you follow along during this short 2 or 3 minute discussion because it will help you to understand which projects are included and which projects are not currently included in the prioritized project listing for the bond program. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a blue box that says recommended planning budget. Below it, there's 2 columns. Northeast ISD is the column to the left. Facility Steering Committee, the 36-member panel, is the column to the right. The value below each of those identification names is how much money that particular group has recommended for inclusion in the bond program. In the case of this category, both groups have recommended the same amount, $20 million. Now, if you look along the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see some yellow highlighted boxes. The first column to the left, or the leftmost column, is the Facility Steering Committee prioritized listing, and the column to the right of that is the Northeast School District prioritized listing. If the box is highlighted in yellow, that particular group is recommending that project be included in the bond program. If it's not highlighted, because we have more projects than we have funding for, then that particular group did not recommend that project be included in the bond program. So in this first category, safety and security, the first program area, campus safety and security, we have 5 categories of projects. Folding accordion partitions. 14 campuses have folding accordion partitions that we would like to replace, either with new partitions that are more functional, because some of these partitions are the original partitions that came with the campus, whatever year it was built. Many of them do not work anymore. Or replace it with permanent walls. The decision which system we choose to go down is going to be largely based on fire department and building code requirements, because we must maintain access and egress corridors for people to be able to get into the classroom and out of the classroom in an efficient way in the event of a fire or emergency. These will be evaluated at each campus if this bond goes forward when we have an architect on board. But we have 14 projects, or 12 elementary school and 2 middle school campuses, 14 projects included for $4.5 million. Both the district and the committee, the Facility Steering Committee, recommended this project, as evidenced by the highlighted yellow box to the left. Next, security entry vestibules. Although we have police officers based at all our high schools and middle schools, we have a roving group of officers that covers our 46 elementary school campuses. Many campuses, you can just walk right in, and if somebody doesn't stop you at the door, they'll have to chase you down the hallway or collect you up and say, you know, you got to check in. There's a process to gain entry to a school. We need to check your credentials, put you through the Raptor system, and make sure you don't have any kind of criminal issue that would preclude you from coming into the school. We want to make our campuses safer by providing secure entry vestibules so the person cannot just bypass the admin office and enter the campus. They'll have to stop and physically go to the administrative person on duty at the time and check in. Now, we can't do all schools in the district at one time. We've selected 19 schools of our 70 to do in this bond program for a cost of $6.5 million. Next, keyless access control. In order to provide the best and safest environment we can, we'd like to be able to lock all exterior doors. Given that we have 275 portables and those kids need to come in and out of the building on a frequent basis, it becomes difficult to keep those exterior doors locked around the complete perimeter of the school. To accomplish this goal, we will put keyless access control devices on exterior doors that are selected, probably 4 doors per campus based on our current budget of $2.25 million. And in this way, the doors can remain locked at all times, and then the person, the district employee, will have on their access badge a proxy tag, a little black dot, which magnetically will allow the door to be opened by just that individual or any individual with an access control device. That way we can keep the doors locked. And this is primarily focused at our elementary and middle school campuses where it's an easier environment with which to control the student movement. At high schools, given we have so many different perimeter doors and the flow of students every 45 to 50 minutes is so large, where we have 3,000 plus students at most of our high schools, it really isn't as prudent to be able to do this at the high school level. There, we're going to have to look at other ways to provide enhanced safety and security. Video surveillance cameras. We have a lot of schools that have the old analog cameras. We want to upgrade to the new digital cameras, and we're going to have to do this one bond at a time across the district, and we have identified campuses in this category that will become our first wave of replacing cameras with new digital systems. And then finally, safety monitoring and security systems, support systems like fire alarm, intrusion detection, public address, things that provide the ability to control events in an emergency. Some of these systems are outdated. Our campuses need to be replaced. We have a prioritized list. We budgeted $1.5 million to accomplish a certain number of campuses in this bond program. Under the Police Department Safety and Security, several of the priorities affect the Police Department headquarters, which is located on Broadway. Upgrading the monitoring dispatch office areas, $1.25 million. Upgrades to the Police Department facility, where we need to provide a little bit of an expansion and improve some of the operational controls, $500,000. Going out to campuses and providing enhanced parking lot lighting, where we find parking lot lighting to be minimal. We budgeted $750,000, and then interior night light upgrades at selected campuses, $1.25 million. That's the 9 projects under the safety and security category. Now, there's $20 million budgeted, and you may ask yourself, that doesn't seem like a lot of money, Mr. Sullivan. I will tell you that we try to evaluate every area to the best of our ability, and I will tell you that we're the 8th largest district in the state of Texas. Now, a district that's larger than us is to our west, Northside School District. In their last bond program, which is larger than what we are discussing this evening, they put in $8.5 million for safety and security. So we have more than doubled what they invested because we have put a lot of emphasis on this program area as we move forward. So we think it's the right amount invested. And as I said, there's a lot of safety and security also included in the other projects. Now you see a 10th project listed under Other. Playground fall protection areas at elementary schools. Currently these are pea gravel fall protection zones, which is a perfectly safe environment. These were put in our 2003 bond program. There has been a call by the campuses to upgrade these to a rubberized surface. These areas are large areas, 12 to 15,000 square feet. So to do all the campuses, all 46 schools and all their playgrounds would cost about $15 million. Currently, neither the district nor the Facility Steering Committee has recommended this project as a top need for this bond program. So overall, safety and security, $20 million. And that includes 9 projects with 1 project currently not funded. Or our next category, 2, technology, has 6 areas. We're going to talk about each of the areas individually. First, client-side technology and equipment. Focuses on the technology equipment that's at the campuses and also at the police department. It includes the student staff and lab computers. It includes our magnet program facility technology equipment. It includes all the peripheral technology systems at the classrooms across the district. It includes training and software requirements for our district learning centers, our computer labs. It includes all the support equipment to make the technology systems work, i.e. printers and bulbs and things like that to make the various systems function properly in the rooms, and then some small replacement at the police department. $26.38 million is budgeted in this first category, which represents about 1/3 of the overall technology program budget of $70 million. Now, the district recommended $70 million, and the Facility Steering Committee increased that slightly to $72.365 million. I'll discuss where the differences are in a few minutes. Next, our library services program. This provides both the digital and the print resources for our libraries, continuing to improve our library resources at the campuses and the technology that supports them. $2.327 million. As you'll notice, in the far left-hand side of the slide, every item so far that's been listed here under the Facility Steering Committee column is listed as a #1 priority because they felt the needs of the technology were so important that they could not put one particular need over another. Both the district and the committee have recommended all the projects in both the client-side technology and the library services program. Next, we have management information services. Represents about 7% of the budget at $7.3 million. Excuse me, 10% of the budget at $7.3 million. It includes our student information services platforms, technology platforms, which accounts for how we report data to the state across the district, as well as upgrades to our phone system. We have a lot of phones that are the older type systems, and we're slowly upgrading them to all voice over IP systems. Next, our network infrastructure services, the largest category in the technology program, over 40%, a little over $29 million, essentially is addressing our wireless and our wired network infrastructure. If you don't have the appropriate infrastructure to support all of your handheld devices, whether it be a small mobile device like this iPad or an iPhone or some other type of smart device, then really the technology is not as valuable as it could be. So we need to continue to be vigilant in upgrading our infrastructure to take advantage of new software, application speeds, and the requirements for these systems to operate properly across the web. Again, $29.2 million or 42% of the technology program. Next are copiers. The district copier program is now approaching 10 to 12 years of age across our district, and we need to replace the copiers with new copier systems that are supported by parts and warranty support. Some of the copiers we have out there you can't get repair parts for anymore. So we need to replace the systems across the district. We budgeted a little under $5 million to do this. Plus, we can take advantage of the fact that the copiers themselves have new technology systems built into them that the campuses can be taken advantage of. Then finally, under the other category, this is where you find the difference between the district and the steering committee. The steering committee recommended, and the district did not, because we established a budget of $70 million, the ERP program, our Enterprise Resource Fund, which essentially affects our human resources and financial technology networks, as well as putting additional funds into the classroom peripheral technology, which is the lion's share of this other category at $2 million. So that's the difference between the district and the facility steering committee, that $2.3 million in the other category. So the district's recommending 15 project categories in technology, and the steering committee is recommending 16, plus enhancing line item C, which is the classroom peripheral technology. The difference between the two programs is a little over $2.3 million. All right, Category 3, district operations. Now, this is certainly not the glamorous stuff of a bond program, but it's necessary. This has 6 program areas. First, we'll start with engineering. They take care of our roofing program. We have some 11 million square feet of facilities under roof. Just like the roof at your house, they're not built to last forever. We need to replace these roofs on a periodic basis. Typically, we get between 20 to 25 years of life out of a roof. And we have a planned replacement program for all 11 million square feet, and we budgeted in this bond program $7.5 million for the roofs that are going to come due that need to be replaced or repaired. We also have a little bit of money in here, about $250,000, to address immediate and high priority parking lot needs at parent drop-off and bus lanes. This category also includes work at our athletic fields. We have existing athletic fields at all the high schools. Both the district and the facility steering committee are recommending that the main competition football field be turfed with artificial turf. Now, while this is not going to save the district any money, it's pretty much a cost-neutral item. What it does do is provide a field that is available 24/7, 365, not affected by the rain. We don't have to irrigate it. We don't have to fertilize it. We don't have to do any particular maintenance type activities to it other than just make sure that it's cared for in terms of a long-term contract where about every 7 to 10 years it would need to be upgraded. This also would upgrade all of our high school tracks, our all-weather surface tracks with new surfaces. Those also need to be addressed about every 7 to 8 years with a track surfacing upgrade. This also, the next project, our middle school tracks, converts all of our middle school tracks from cinder tracks to all-weather surface tracks like at the high schools. I think many of you would relate to the fact that we have a lot of people, both community members and students, that use our athletic fields daily and on the weekends. We open the schools on the weekends. A lot of people are out there walking and doing physical fitness, and we want to provide good facilities for them to be able to do their workouts. The cinder tracks are more prone to drainage issues and require a lot more maintenance, and again, this is going to save us maintenance dollars, and as Mr. Moy explained in his presentation, that's the tax rate that deals with the maintenance and operations of the district. The bond can buy it and provide a really good system that the M&O system doesn't have to spend a lot of money to maintain. That's a win-win for the taxpayers and the school district. The next 2 projects are not recommended by the district, but were recommended by the facility steering committee. That includes addressing campus tennis courts, whether they be at high school or middle school, with new court surfaces. They also need to be maintained on the average of about every 7 years. And also at selected campuses to address some sports fields issues, or grass fields that need some maintenance and upgrades. Neither the district or the steering committee saw fit to include currently as a funded priority project middle school PE lockers at Bush and Tejada. In a previous bond program, the 03 bond program, we put in all new lockers at the older middle schools because they were old schools and had locker needs. Bush and Tejada at that time, 10 years ago, were relatively new. Well, now they have old lockers that need to be addressed, but again, it's not currently funded. And if you look at the top, the district recommendation for this category is $56 million, and the steering committee is $60.625 million. And I'll discuss those differences, which we just discussed the main difference, which was the campus tennis courts and the sports fields. That's the difference between the district and the steering committee. Next, we have our maintenance program. We need to maintain chillers, boilers, air handlers, elevators, all the capital equipment that makes the schools function properly behind the scenes. That also has life expectancies of anywhere from 15 to 25 years, and we have a planned replacement cycle for it as well. Also upgrading lighting in our schools to provide more energy efficient lighting. We've got a certain number of campuses identified in this bond program that would also bring with it a CPS energy rebate to our M&O program. Student health services, addressing some clinic needs in the district. We've budgeted a little over $1 million. School nutrition, our food service program. We've got campus food service kitchens that need upgrades to their air conditioning system and the serving line equipment. We also have upgrade requirements at the central food service warehouse, which the district operates and then from there distributes all the food products to the campuses. That program, $7.5 million. Procurement and e-commerce, which runs all of our warehousing operations, and our print shop. They have facility needs that amount to $3.45 million. Now, this particular project is tied to a project in Category 5. If we don't do this project, then it will impact the ability to do the project in Category 5 that deals with our Career and Technology Program Academy, which we'll discuss in about 10 minutes. This consolidates our technology and our print service functions over at the main Broadway warehouse and essentially allows us to repurpose the spaces at Perrin Central for a new Career and Technology Academy. And then finally, transportation. We maintain a lot of buses. A bus lasts about 15 years and costs a little under $100,000. They have to be replaced periodically to provide proper and safe vehicles to transport the students. We have funds allocated, $6.75 million, to replace buses that are reaching the end of their useful life. We also have a small amount of money, a little over $1 million, to do some upgrades to our bus terminals. We currently operate 3 bus terminals. Overall, this category is a critical part of our bond program, but it's because it's the behind-the-scenes operations that support the instructional program at the campuses. As you can see, the district recommended 12 projects for $56 million. The steering committee recommended 14 projects, the difference being the campus tennis courts and the athletic sports fields maintenance for $60.625 million, and neither saw fit based on our funding limitations to include the middle school PE locker renovations at Bush and Tejada. All right, Category 4, extracurricular. This deals with athletics, fine arts, and JROTC. First, we're going to talk about the athletics area. Now, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see both the steering committee and the district are recommending for this category $78 million for our extracurricular program. Under athletics, we have 4 projects that are recommended by both the district and the steering committee. The first being upgrades to our current aquatics facilities, which includes the Walker Pool and the Josh Davis Pool. The Walker Pool facility, which was the original natatorium in the district, has reached the point where the actual superstructure that holds the roof over the pool needs to be replaced. We've had an assessment done by a structural engineer. It's time to replace it. It has reached the end of its useful life. It needs significant maintenance, which exceeds what would be prudent to invest in it, so the best course of action is to replace it with a new structure. We also need to replace the locker rooms and dressing rooms at the facility, as well as the admin support spaces. And at Josh Davis, we want to air condition the pool and improve the pool deck slip surface, so it's a better slip resistant surface, upgrade the lighting, and also paint the inside of the pool area. This also includes the next project, a new pool facility, new water. We need more water for our aquatics program. We currently have 7 campuses that essentially use our 2 pools, the Walker Pool, the original pool, and the Josh Davis Pool, which was built in the '98 bond program, both swimming and diving. It's a very tough schedule to get all those programs in and out of our 2 pools in a fashion that supports those programs in an efficient way. So the bond program is currently including some new water to provide a 3rd pool facility for the aquatics program. Next, upgrades at our Blossom Athletic Center. This essentially is Comalander Stadium. The bleachers there are the original bleachers that were originally installed at MacArthur High School in 1955. We took them down in the early 60s and moved them over to BAC and added to them. We have beefed them up. We had a structural engineer assess them. We've done upgrades to them, but they also have reached the end of their useful life and need to be replaced. This also includes upgrades to the public restrooms and the dressing areas used by the teams that compete at that facility. Our tennis center currently has 14 courts. In order to provide an appropriate environment for competition, we need 18 courts. So we need 4 new courts. And we have a phased plan to replace the old courts. In this bond program, 4 of the existing courts will be replaced with new courts. So overall, 8 courts, 4 new and 4 replaced at our tennis center. The baseball stadium is currently not recommended by either the Facility Steering Committee nor the district as a new baseball facility. Under the Fine Arts program, we've got a number of different areas. The first area is our high school music and theater arts program. 2 projects are recommended. An expansion to facilities at Churchill, Johnson, and Reagan, to their band halls, which those band halls now have reached capacity levels with the student participation levels at those 3 programs. MacArthur High School. This is the band hall that was put in over 20 years ago, and it needs to be upgraded. It's the only fine arts facility we have that does not have an orchestra pit. Believe it or not, right below me here, this is an orchestra pit. We have a cover line so that it can be used for presentations like this. MacArthur's pit, though, is over the cafeteria, the existing cafeteria that was renovated, so it doesn't have an orchestra pit. So they had to haul everything up, props, scenes, equipment, instruments from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. We're proposing to put in a large freight elevator to help in the movement of these resources and assets that are used to put on fine arts performances, as well as to kind of reorganize the facility and also take the dance program, which is currently in a metal building, and put it into a permanent facility. And then you'll see the Churchill and Reagan Orchestra program is not currently funded by either the Facility Steering Committee or the district. Cheer and dance program upgrades. There was a project to upgrade the Churchill High School dance facility that was not selected by either the district or the Facility Steering Committee. Next, our middle school programs. Nimitz Middle School, which was built back in the early 60s, 1961 to be exact. This project would replace the existing band and choir facility that were built back in the 1960s with new facilities. The Bradley and White projects that are shown here are currently not included in the bond program as a recommended project due to funding limitations, as well as upgrades to the cafetoriums, which are the performance spaces for fine arts programs that are at most of our middle schools. Most schools do not have an auditorium. We've migrated away from auditoriums in the 70s and 80s to cafetoriums, which is doubles as a cafeteria and an auditorium. That project is currently not funded. And then finally, ROTC has 5 projects listed. 3 are currently recommended for funding. Buying the new air rifle electronic targeting and soaring systems for the other 4 campuses that did not receive them in this current bond program. We're currently fielding new systems at Lee, Churchill, and MacArthur. This would provide the game scoring systems for the other 4 campuses. And then a new ROTC facility at Reagan High School and an upgrades to the existing ROTC at Madison High School round out the ROTC category. Neither the orienteering course nor a consolidated JROTC facility are currently included in the bond funding for the extracurricular category. Again, overall, $78 million for extracurricular. And that brings us to Category 5. Excuse me, forgot the summary chart. So what projects did we not include in the Category 4 category? We had 8 projects that were currently not included and funded. These include the new baseball stadium, which is the athletic project. And then we had 5 fine arts projects, 2 high school, 3 middle school, and then 2 JROTC projects that are currently not funded. And again, as Dr. Gottardy mentioned, this list is not final yet. We still have 2 more Facility Steering Committee meetings to discuss the broad goals of the district as relates to this bond program where there can be adjustments still made. All right, on to Category 5, our last category. As you look in the upper right-hand box, this has the lion's share of the funding, the majority share of the funding in the bond program, because it has some of the largest projects in the bond program. $231 million recommended by the district, $257 million recommended by the steering committee. It's broken into 5 program areas. The first, the new school, budgeted at $42.75 million. And as Dr. Gottardy mentioned earlier, there's still great discussion underway as to whether or not this school can be pushed off to the next bond program, and then that money can be freed up to either support other projects or to provide a bond program overall budget that's below $500 million, which is our no tax rate increase limit. Portable classroom replacement projects. Regency Place Elementary School currently has the distinction of having the most portables of any school in Northeast School District with 11. And this summer they're lucky enough to receive number 12 because they have program needs and capacity requirements for new space. The project would replace the portables with a new permanent building addition and address a new library and administrative area upgrades. $20 million. The Madison High School project is currently not recommended. It was to take the existing 9 portables at Madison and again convert the old gymnasium facility, which is still standing at Madison, into a career and technology and classroom facility. Currently not funded. Next category, major additions and renovations. As our facility needs survey showed, some of the older schools in the district have some great needs. We identified Jackson and Kruger middle schools as beginning the first phase of a multi-phase program to replace the campus facilities that are now approaching 50 years of age. You also see Garner listed here. Garner is currently, with this project, would be phase 4 of a 5-phase program. So we started the replacement of Garner Middle School 3 bonds ago. We've done a piece of the school every bond program since the 03 bond. We did new science building in 03, we did an athletic facility expansion and fine arts expansion in 07, and in 2011 we're building all new classroom facilities. This continues that trend with phase 4, which addresses library, career and technology, admin, counseling clinic, teacher workroom. And then the final phase takes care of the remainder of the fine arts, thank you, fine arts programs. Obviously we have a Garner fan in the audience. Overall, these 3 middle school projects represent about $70 million. Then the Churchill campus, built in 1966. The main academic building that was opened in 1966 is still standing. It's over 50 years old next year. It needs to be replaced, as well as the original career and technology building that stands to the south of it. We propose this project would be phase 1 of a 2 or 3 phase program to replace this building in a phased manner. Obviously, at campuses like Churchill, where you have a large student population, a lot of faculty, the campus is operational pretty much every day of the year, even during the summer. There's students there and programs going on, that we have to do this in pieces because we can't just knock down 200,000 square feet of building and put it back up and not affect instruction. So we got to do it one piece at a time. This would be the next piece of that project. The Lee High School Old Theater renovation project is currently not included by either the district or the steering committee. However, at Lee High School, the old science building is proposed to renovate it for a career and technology program and STEM program that both exist over at Lee High School and make this facility essentially a career and technology building. Currently, the bond program is providing new science facilities that essentially provides the new space that this space would be vacated, providing the ability to renovate it and repurpose it into new program space for other programs. Both the Eisenhower Middle School cafeteria expansions are currently not funded. The Hidden Forest Elementary School project. Hidden Forest Elementary School's main gymnasium has some structural issues that slowly over time have deteriorated to the point where we're now recommending replacement of the gym with a new gym facility. It'll give us the opportunity to expand the cafeteria, which is very small, into what would be the old gym area that would have to be replaced, and also to expand the admin area, which is very small. Renovating the elementary school gyms at Montgomery and Northern Hills, as well as special education classrooms and restrooms at campuses district-wide, is currently not recommended for funding by either the district or the facility steering committee due to funding limitations. At the very bottom, you have $5 million budgeted for campus furniture, fixtures, and equipment replacements. Currently, it's not funded in this bond program. And then finally, rounding out category number 5, we have our magnet program areas. Lee High School is recommended to get a new fine arts center. It's the only high school in the district that has 2 distinct and separate fine arts programs. It has the Lee High School Fine Arts Program, and it has the Northeast School of the Arts. The 2 programs compete for the smallest auditorium in the district, built in 1958. We're recommending replacing that auditorium with an auditorium just like you're sitting in here at Madison High School, was built in our 2007 bond program to support both the NEISD and Lee Fine Arts programs, $35.5 million. The Madison Agri-Science Phase 2 project is currently recommended by the steering committee and not the district, because we set a cap on how much we were going to recommend, and they were allowed to go beyond that cap with their recommendations. $10 million to address the next phase of the Agri-Science Magnet Program at Madison. And then finally, our Career and Technology Academy. We currently recognize with the new state legislative requirements that we need to address some of our career and technology program areas, since students can choose that career track as part of their program choice for how they achieve their graduation requirements. This would provide and consolidate some of our career and technology facilities that are currently laid out across the district at multiple campuses into a single facility that could then be staffed appropriately and have state-of-the-art equipment to provide those students with a great way to get an education, to go, if they chose, out into the workforce and get jobs in mechanical, electrical, plumbing, any different type of career field that's supported by this program. We would take the facilities that are vacated by the warehouse and technology folks that move over to Broadway Warehouse and repurpose them for this Career and Technology Academy. And then under the other category, for $16 million, currently the steering committee is recommending walking tracks be constructed at all elementary school campuses that do not have a walking track, which is about 40 schools, 675 feet in length, again, to promote health and wellness and fitness. Overall, the steering committee is recommending $257 million, the district $231 million. We're recommending 10 projects at the district level, the steering committee 12 projects as part of their deliberations, and currently there are 8 projects that are not funded as part of Category 5. They include the Madison High School portable replacement, as well as the Lee High School old theater renovation, which we're providing a new theater, Eisenhower Middle School and Bradley Middle School cafeteria expansions, the elementary school renovations at Montgomery and Northern Hills, upgrades to special education, classrooms and restrooms, selected restrooms district-wide, and FF&E replacements. Now, you may ask, why do you have these extra projects on here? Well, we didn't know what projects the steering committee were going to see as most important as compared to what the thought was most important. So we provided choices, flexibility, so that they could have the ability to look beyond what the district recommended and provide their own touch on the bond program, what they thought were priorities. And in fact, they went beyond what the district recommended. We recommended an overall program of $487 million, as you see here, and they're currently at $519.99 million. Let's call it $520. Now, as Mr. Moy presented to you, the tax rate level before it would trigger an increase has a capacity of $500 million in our bond program. So the district is currently lower than that by $13 million, and the steering committee is higher than that by $20 million. So the superintendent's guidance to the group was, I'm not ready to go out with a bond program and recommend to the board any more than $500 million. So we still have some work to do over the next 2 meetings with the facility steering committee to iron out exactly what's going to be the final proposal that's presented to the school board in mid-June. You'll also notice below Category 5 on this chart, there are 2 other categories of funding. One is the district program management at $17 million. That funds the district's internal in-house program management resources to manage our bond programs. And I lead that initiative. I'm the executive director in charge of it. It includes everything from planning the bond program, which we're talking about tonight, to hiring all the design professionals, to hiring all the contractors, to managing the construction with the contractors and design professionals, to the warranty period that follows, and to any issues that happen in between. Some school districts have chosen to outsource this function. It typically, our experience is it costs more to outsource it than to do it in-house. Plus, you get employees like myself that are vested with the district. I'm a district employee. I will care a lot more about the success of this program than any consultant that we hire that doesn't work for the school district, just because I work here. This is my home. And I'm a taxpayer, so I want it done right. So we felt like this is the better way to go, and we've done this since the 95 bond very successfully. We've done every project and every bond program and more than we promised the voters, and still have a fund balance, a slight fund balance to show for it. Currently in this bond program, our fund balance is $2.7 million on $275 million in construction. That's what we had left over after all projects were funded. And then finally, our global contingency fund. Not like you, unlike what, let's put this the right way. You would not budget at your household every single dollar to go out the door that comes in. You would want to save money to cover expenses that come up, like replace your water heater, fix your car, things that come up that are not a normal monthly expense. You have to have a savings account to take care of that. The bond program also needs a small savings account. We're being asked right now to tell you exactly how much something is going to cost. It's not going to bid out for a contractor to give us a price until 2017 or 2018. We have to accurately predict the cost of fuel, what's it going to cost for a gallon of gas 2.5 to 3 years from now. And we can't afford to be wrong, because if we're wrong, then we can't do all the projects, and that's not going to go over very well. So we have to have a little bit of a fund, a contingency fund, to cover differences between contractor bids and our budgets that we put together now in May of 2015 for projects that are going to bid 2.5 to 3 years from now, to cover the differences between our estimates and what actual construction costs are going to be in the future. It represents about 3% of the bond program. So if I can be 97% right, I think that's pretty good. And that overall covers the total value of the bond program for the 2 groups, the Facility Steering Committee and Northeast ISD. At this point, we're going to open up to questions that you may have, where you can text in using your smart devices questions or comments about what we presented this evening, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Caldwell to talk about that next.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. My pleasure.
At every community meeting, we've asked you for your feedback, and we've been able to do that through text messaging. We're going to take your comments and questions again this evening. Dr. Gottardy will be coming up to answer some of those questions. We have found that we get far more questions than we can answer in the time allotted, so those are included in a frequently asked questions document that is on the district's webpage. We have posted questions from the last community meetings, and we will continue to do so throughout this process. So Tom Johnson is going to go over with you the Poll Everywhere process.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to have a chance for you to participate. We want to hear your voice, and we're going to do this using a tool called Poll Everywhere. This is a tool that many of your students at the secondary level utilize frequently. So using either your smartphone or any type of internet-connected device, I would like to show you two ways in which you can participate. If you're going to use just an internet-connected device, launch your web browser and point your browser to pollev.com/NEISD. If you'd like to use your cell phone, simply open up your text messaging app, and instead of texting a name or someone's phone number, text the number 22333. And then the message you want to send to that number is NEISD. This will allow you to join the group, and you'll actually receive a confirmation message saying that you joined Jeff Kurth's group. That's a good thing. Once you receive that, then feel free to continue texting that phone number with any questions or comments you have regarding any of the areas of the projects that Gary explained to you. So right now we'll remove the tutorial screen, and the poll is open.
Something about, I know Madison's received a new building, but could we invest more money into the theater arts department facilities here at Madison? Obviously, we'll take a look at it in our facility steering process. We'll look at the comments made over the last 3 or 4 months in the way of what the principals said here at Madison, as well as the theater arts department, fine arts department, as well as, we'll look at it. But you saw by the slide before that if we're going to stay under $500 million, we have some more trimming to do, and we have some work that still needs to be done. So I'm not going to tell you tonight that it's going to be included. All right, what is the difference in the numbering system?
Priorities.
Oh, yeah. What we asked the facility steering committee to do was prioritize. And some committees prioritize 1 through 10, 1 through 11, 1 through 12. And there was 1 or 2 committees that felt like everything in their category was a number 1. Okay, and we'll have to get that straight at our next facility steering committee. Fine arts needs attention in Madison. We'll take a look at it. A message here, keep bond below $500 million. None of the bond projects mentioned tonight addressed elementary campuses built in the 50s inside 410. Will those facilities ever be as equitable? I would tell you that one of the focuses, I think Gary might have mentioned it, one of the focuses has been over the last 3 bond programs is for portable replacement. That's why Regency Place was chosen in this particular bond program, because they have 24 classrooms. They probably have more students in portable classrooms than they do in the campus. So that's why we targeted Regency Place. And I have to tell you, many of these questions as we scroll through here is about doing more stuff. And remember what I've said at other community meetings, and what I'll continue to say, is that we have a lot of data in the department now. We probably have, and I'm just estimating, probably well over $2 billion worth of needs. So in order to get it to a $500 million bond, there are many, many projects that will not be addressed in this bond. I appreciate the planning that went into this process. Thank you very much. I have to be honest with you. It has been about 6 months of a lot of work by a lot of people sitting over here, and I appreciate someone recognizing that work. Replacing all portables would be the best option. I guess that comment means let's not do anything else but replace portables. Okay? I can tell you that that's not what the community feedback has told us. It has been important, but if we did nothing but portable replacement, we wouldn't do anything else in the bond program. Okay, let me take 1 or 2 more. Covered walkways between buildings for inclement weather at Roosevelt. I can tell you this is a hot button at a lot of schools. The idea that we have 275 portable classrooms, is that right, Gary? Yes, sir. It means that when it does rain, normally 5 times a year, this year's a little bit different, kids do have to walk in the weather, no question. But it has been a practice of our district that we do not put a strong emphasis on covered walkways between buildings or between portable classrooms and the main building. Honestly, it's all about where do you spend your dollars. And we've just always decided that it was better to do a lot of other things versus covered walkways that really and truly you would use, I don't know, on a wet year, maybe 10% of the time. Okay, one more. We definitely need more water. There's an ice chest full of water over here. I'm kidding. I get that. I have to be honest with you. Being an old coach and an old athlete myself, I knew absolutely nothing about swimming. And over the last 2 years, I've tried my best to learn an awful lot about swimming and diving. Because 4 years ago, when we had these community meetings, we had a lot of swimming parents who wanted more water. Well, it didn't make the list 4 years ago. But I had a strong suspicion that it would surface again this time. So I've tried to learn more, and I've tried to talk to a lot of people. I've gone to more swimming meets this year than I've probably gone to in my whole life. To talk to parents, to talk to community members about that idea of more water. And I would tell you, I feel very good that the district staff as well as the steering committee have both said that we need additional water. And Gary mentioned our teams. And he always does a great job of explaining, but there's a couple of other things that are very important with this water. We give swimming lessons. We have senior citizens who go over to the pool every day and swim. Our pools are open from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. I'm guessing now, but probably 6 days a week. I see Karen out there. Is it 7? 6. Okay. So 6 days a week, we're open from 6 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And the swimming community have strongly urged that we take a strong consideration to adding more water in this bond program. The line item of $10 million for a 25-meter pool, that will help us with additional water. Okay.
Dr. Gottardy,
Is that enough time?
you can take a few more.
Which one?
Not sure I understand when you spend $15 million because it's not being recommended. We heard it from the community that they wanted it, but we're not recommending it at this time.
The idea of an elementary playground fallscape. For those of you who have been in the district for a while now, you know that we've gone to every playground, every elementary playground in the district over the last 3 bond programs, and we've put in fallscapes. The pea gravel that is in place is a very safe fallscape for students. So the idea being, do we want to upgrade to this new rubberized mat throughout the school district for $16 million. It was not recommended by the district staff, and it was not recommended by the steering committee. And honestly, I think that's a smart decision. When you have $2 billion worth of needs and you're only going to go for $500 million, there are projects that are not going to make the list. And I think the playgrounds, as they are safe. I hope I answered that question. New elementary, please. Walker Pool needs a lot of work. It does need a lot of work. I think Gary did a good job of saying that. New fall zones not needed at this time. Someone agrees with me. Focus on classroom needs. Can't argue that. Totally agree with that. In addition to upgrade proposed at Comelander, we also need to upgrade the concession facilities. I know that the restrooms and the dressing rooms and the bleachers are on the list, but I'm not sure that concessions are on the list. So we can take a look at that, but making no promises. Okay, one more. Probably not. It'd be nice. Too bad he didn't graduate from one of the Northeast high schools. That's probably a principal over there texting. We've heard a lot of comments about railings at our 2 football stadiums. And I don't know what's been designed so far. In fact, it probably has not been designed so far, but I know that that is an important safety feature. Since we are going to recommend that the bleachers, which are 60 years old, get replaced, I think this would be an ample time to take a look at putting railings up for specifically our patrons who come to those events. Okay, there are probably a lot more questions or comments that I did not answer. I can assure you that we'll look at each and every text message. We will report to the steering committee what was said, what was texted, and we will be using that information as we make decisions as we finalize this process. I'm going to turn it back over to Deb, who now has a very important part of the meeting, and that is voting.
Thank you, Dr. Gottardy. Northeast ISD residents were handed a clicker when you came in today. We're going to be using that tool to vote in just a few minutes. We're going to ask you to vote on each budget for the project categories and then the overall bond program planning budget, which we've taken that vote before, but we want to see if it still holds true. We'll be getting our poll up here in just a second. So first, the safety and security budget. It was presented tonight at $20 million, recommended from the Facility Steering Committee. Please vote whether you think that $20 million is too high, too low, just right, or unsure. Polling is open. Let's close polling and show the results, please. Majority voted just right. Next question, please. The technology budget, $72,365,000. Is it too high, too low, just right, or unsure? Let's close polling, please, and show the results. Again, the majority voted just right. Next question. The operations budget at $60.625. Too high, too low, just right, or unsure? Waiting for a few more responses. We had 64 in the last question. We are 62 now. Let's close polling and show the results, please. 3 just right. Next question. The extracurricular budget at $78 million is too high, too low, just right, or unsure? Waiting for a few more. Let's close polling. Pretty closely divided between too high and just right. Next question, please. The facilities budget at $257 million. Too high, too low, just right, or unsure. Let's close polling, please. 52% felt it was just right. Next question. So to guide the future planning process that our steering committee is still doing, district staff should consider a total bond program of less than $300 million, $300 to $399, $400 to $499, $500 to $599, $600 million and above. Waiting for a few more. Let's close polling, please. Answer 3, $400 million to $499. As Dr. Gottardy mentioned, the comments that you texted in, as well as these voting results, will be shared at the Facility Steering Committee so they know how you feel about the process. You can follow the facility planning process online. The web address is there on the bottom of the slide, but you also were given a bookmark when you came in that has a QR code. It's that square icon. You can scan that with a smart device. It will take you right to the web page. Over under the information box to the left, you'll see that we do have tonight's proposed bond program summary that Mr. Sullivan presented. It is posted there, and you can review it. And as it changes, we will update it. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Gottardy to close out our meeting.
I think the first thing is I want to thank you again very much for your participation tonight. I can assure you that the voting is going to be used next week when our Facility Steering Committee gets back together. We appreciate the interest in that. The final recommendation, one more time, will go to the Board of Trustees on June the 15th. The board may choose to call a bond election. The board will choose to call a bond election for November. They will not call that election until actually in August. But the Facility Steering Committee is going to present the final package to the Board of Trustees at the June 15th board meeting. Again, you can follow the process on the district's website. Everything you want to know about this facilities needs process for the last 6 months is on the web page. Again, I want to highlight a couple things. First of all, I want to commend Brian Moy, Dan Villarreal. I hope you understood what he said during his presentation, that we are telling you tonight, Northeast taxpayers, that we are going to lower the INS tax rate by 2 pennies in August and still be able to go to our voters, to our property tax owners in the Northeast School District for a bond up to $500 million with no tax rate increase for a minimum of 5 years. I really and truly think that's a wonderful thing for this school district. I believe that some of you who voted to go for $500 to $600 million, you know, some of you are probably veterans, and you know that that's a real coup for Northeast School District, that we can make those promises this early in advance. So thank you to our finance department. A couple board members came in right after I sat down. I want to introduce our board vice president, Mrs. Shannon Grona. Our board secretary, Mrs. Sandi Hughey. I also want members of our facility steering committee, and I've seen 3 or 4 of them that are in the audience, to please stand and be recognized. And then lastly, these kind of productions take a lot of work. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes on. A special round of applause for Deb Caldwell, who helps coordinate all this. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting really close. We're less than a month away from finalizing a package for the next bond program. So I appreciate your attendance, appreciate your participation. Staff will be here to answer any questions that you might have at the end of this evening. Thank you so much for being here. Be careful going home. Thank you.